All right, welcome into Surviving Paradise, the podcast that takes a sometimes serious, oftentimes humorous look at the claim by Jehovah's Witnesses that they are living in a modern day spiritual paradise. Watch where you walk. I'm your host, Stacy Bauman, former elder, ministerial servant, and a kid raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the 70s and 80s. As we do each week, a warning, some things here can trigger people. It's an emotional journey when you're in paradise. We try to have some fun, healing, sarcasm, humor, and my own brand of observation and experience. Please note, it's never meant to offend. Welcome in. I am a child of the 70s, as most here know. I talk about it a lot, probably more than you want to hear. In 1979 was one of my favorite years for music. If I had to pick a year to return to as a kid, I would probably pick right in that time frame, 1978, 1979. And one of the songs that I love to this day that came out in 1979 is Billy Joel's Honesty. It's a simple song, but it says a few profound things, even for a kid that was in seventh grade. By the time Honesty was being played on the radio, and big note here, that was really a thing, kids. We had these things called radios with dials on them, AM and FM. By that time, I had a pretty good grasp of what it meant to tell the truth. I also had a pretty good grip on what it meant to lie, and I did a little bit of that too. It's a way of life when you're hanging out with the other boys on the playground and you've got to come up with some bragging rights. You know, if you were there, like the time you took a 6-foot jump off a homemade cardboard box bike ramp you pulled out of the garbage from the local grocery store. I got 6 feet off the ground, guys. It was more like 6 inches. But let's be honest, 6 feet is so much more impressive with the guys in seventh grade. So I had a pretty good grasp on what it meant to be honest and what it meant to be dishonest. In the spirit of transparency, I've always loved good writing. And despite just being a kid, Billy Joel in that song nailed it. It's a pretty short song, it's simple, but it says a lot about telling the truth. And as a fatherless kid that was mostly introverted and went inside myself a lot when I was little, I just loved the lyrics to that song, and I still do. For example, one of the lines goes something like this: "Don't worry, I'm not going to sing." It says, quote, "When I'm deep inside of me, don't be too concerned. I won't ask for nothing while I'm gone. But when I want sincerity, tell me where else can I turn? 'Cause you're the one I depend upon." End quote. Let's be honest. See what I did there? Everyone needs someone that they can depend on. The truth is critical to building any sense of trust. Some would say that telling the truth is everything, even if it hurts. So a huge shout out this morning and thank you to Billy Joel. 1979 was a damn good year, including that song that I still play on my Spotify playlist. You know, radios, they're long gone. But if you look at the subject of truth, throughout all of man's history, you will find that truth has always been a subject that almost everyone is highly interested in, goes without saying. Do you know anyone in your life or in your journey through life that actually likes being lied to? I don't know anybody that enjoys that. Truth, telling the truth, is critical to life. Seeking honesty and transparency and fact is a prerequisite for a stable and happy life. I think we'd all agree. So it should shock no one that this is most true inside, if not all, of world's religions, including their founders and their holy books. Pick a religion. Truth is thematic throughout their writings. From the leader themselves to the printed page, the world's mainstream religions are big on truth, honesty, and integrity. How about a few reminders from some of those leaders and religions? From the Buddha, we get, quote, 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth, end quote. How about For our Islamic friends, from the Quran, 9 verse 119 tells us, quote, O ye who believe, fear Allah and be with those who are true in word and deed, end quote. And of course, no collection of religious leaders would be complete without the King of Jehovah's Witnesses, Jesus Christ himself, who said, quote, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me, end quote. And with those three just quick quotes, I think I've covered a few billion people who believe in those faiths. But whether you've won 6 Grammys and you actually win Album of the Year for 52nd Street, looking at you, Billy Joel, and Honesty, or you're a spiritual leader of whom billions still hang on your every word, you're simply nothing. You're nothing compared to the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. I know, you're surprised, but well, it's true. See what I did there? I will spare everyone the thousands and thousands of reminders that they alone were chosen by Jesus Christ to tell the truth to the rest of mankind. It goes without saying, right? Most of us are here because we've heard that before. But Jehovah's Witnesses are so associated with telling the truth that at some point in their history, plus long history, I should say, they took to calling their religion, you guessed it, I can hear some of you saying it out, the truth. That's right. Everything they do is so honest, so pure. Those inside the religion call their way of life the truth. Rarely will you hear a Jehovah's Witness call their organization the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society or the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. No, you'll never hear that. Those are just legal names for their organization because Jesus set the tone for his future legal team in New York, USA during his first visit to earth, in Jerusalem and its surrounding cities. I know, you're right. Jesus did have a lot to say to the Pharisees about legalese and straining out gnats and stuff. But he changed his mind in 1919 and put a legal team together. That's just the kind of king he is. Jehovah's Witnesses often refer to their religion and their way of life as the truth. In fact, we hear it all the time on JW Broadcasting when the speaker mentions how the next person they're interviewing has, quote, been in the truth for 20 years, or, quote, found the truth in 1956. You will even hear the moniker when someone leaves the organization. Well-meaning friends and family say things like, you can't leave the truth, or who else has sayings of truth? Those of us that have left likely recognize the acronym TTATT, which I guess the mentally diseased apostate community came up with, the truth about the truth. In the end, only Jehovah's Witnesses and their governing body have a religion that can be called the truth. Even as Jeffrey Winder just a few weeks ago says that they're not going to be apologizing for getting things wrong, meaning it wasn't the truth. Ever. It was never the truth. Guess where we're going this week, folks? Here we go. With all of that said, imagine the excitement when I jumped onto Jesus' website this past week and found that one of the feature articles was entitled, Is Truth Important Anymore? Complete with illustrations that look like a politician and, oh yes, a false religious minister in a church. I'm going to confess here and now, I laughed, and here we are. It's a brief article that might take 2 to 3 minutes to read, very brief. It has what they've become famous for, its typical bullet points, those famous little spiritual breadcrumbs they get us all to think about. as they're reciting this article to us. After all, compartmentalizing is a critical tool for arriving at the truth, and they're very good at designing articles that help Jehovah's Witnesses compartmentalize in their mind. After reading the article, which appeared, at least to me, to be aimed at the same audience that watches Caleb and Sophia videos, yeah, kids, it was that basic. It was so basic. I found myself contemplating how an estimated 8 million people see this as tasty spiritual food in a spiritual paradise. But more importantly, I wondered if there was at least one person that read this article on the website and sat back and thought, if I look deeper at an organization that calls itself The Truth and claims they alone have that truth, what would I find? Would I find almost 2 centuries of honesty, accuracy, and transparency? In the words of Billy Joel in his great song, would I find, quote, someone I could depend on? For that one person that had read this really deep article and had that thought, they undoubtedly would immediately think, surely, see what I did there? I can depend on the faithful and discreet slave. I think I'll dive into their treasure chest of literature, history, publications, and now videos to get a closer look at the men who call my faith the truth. Surely that's what I'm going to find, right? Before I dive into this week's spiritual meal via the website, consider what the governing body has to say about truth. Under the subsequent article, Truth, from Insight on the Scriptures, Volume 2, page 1130, we are treated to their definition, I might add, of truth. It reads like this, quote, the Hebrew term emeth, often rendered truth, may designate that which is firm, trustworthy, stable, faithful, true, or establish as fact. The Greek word aletheia stands in contrast with falsehood or unrighteousness and denotes that which conforms to fact or to what is right and proper. End quote. From their mouths to our ears. That's from the Insight book. Truth, looking at their definition and mining it a bit, is firm. It is trustworthy. You notice they use the word stable. Stable, faithful, true, and established as fact. Fact. They got all of that from the book that Jesus wrote for them and to them. So I'm sure they would follow it closely, right? Everything they have said or say is an established fact. It is stable. It's very stable. It is firm. It is trustworthy. Their words, not mine. So please pull out your Insight book if you still have one, because this trustworthy 2-set volume it's now out of print. This piece of truth can only be accessed on the website. The books, they're gone. But remember, they're firm and they're stable. But they're gone. They're gone now. If you're looking for a real-world example of stability, and I'm just going to throw this in here, right here, you're looking for something I want to hang my hat on this stability, this truth, this established as fact thing, that my religion, the truth itself, believes in. So if you're looking at one example of the governing body and their truths, how about just one for anyone interested in taking a closer look at what it means to be stable inside the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses? Take, for example, just briefly, vaccinations and organ transplants. Remember those? They were forbidden by the governing body and the prior leadership out of New York. They were forbidden for decades. But in an act of truthfulness and overt stability, Jesus apparently directed them to say they were okay again by the 1980s. Remember, their truth and stability are a direct reflection of the King himself. Keep that in mind. Never mind, apparently, using this one example, never mind those people that died, putting their faith in their truth. Those that came after them after the 1980s benefited, so it's all okay, right? I digress. We'll come back to this subject. With their definition of truth in mind, let's take a look at this week's article featured on the website. I'm going to do what I never thought I'd do again in my life, and I'm going to act like a Watchtower study conductor. I did it for 8 years. I'm ashamed to admit this seemed all too comfortable. The training is real, people. Let's take this brief article that millions are reading via the website and that millions consider as coming from the throne of Jesus Christ himself and break it down by paragraph. Who's up for this? It's almost like we're having our own little summer convention. Remember, everything contained in this article is called truth. And candidly, it's my hope that a Jehovah's Witness listening will take just this one article regarding truth and truly think about what is being said versus reality, what they can see, what they can know, what they can access themselves on the website or in their hard copy library. I can only hope beyond hope that something here in the next few minutes breaks through the cognitive dissonance to get a Jehovah's Witness thinking. The article on the website's still up. I checked this morning. It begins with the following introduction. Quote, "Does it seem to you that the line between true and false has become blurred? People now seem to be persuaded more by emotion and personal belief than by truth and facts. For example, the word post-truth, which was coined to describe this situation, has surged in use in recent times. It well describes the entire world today, in which many believe that there is no such thing as truth." End quote. Opening paragraph, please go see it for yourself. Now, if you're wondering what post-truth is, because I was, it was actually the 2016 Oxford Dictionary word of the year. Word, it's 2 words. I don't get it. Who knew? And it means something I'm sure will get everyone here thinking, and I love that they threw it in to the first paragraph. You will begin to think about a few things, especially as used by the governing body in this article. Here's the definition. Quote, "Relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief." End quote. That is post-truth, folks. Yeah, the governing body went there. This week, opening paragraph. They're saying that the world is stuck in a morass of post-truth where people are more influenced by how they feel than actual objective facts. They are accusing the rest of the world of distorting factual truth with post-truth, or again, appealing to your emotions or your personal beliefs. The governing body, let's be honest here, the governing body would never leverage post-truth to appeal to people's emotions, would they? They'd never do that. Not Jesus Kings in New York. They wouldn't distort factual truth for personal gain, would they? No, not possible. I have to say that unfortunately, a podcast format doesn't allow for video reviews, but I highly recommend anyone listening to spend just a few minutes watching their recent videos. All of them featuring heart-rending scenes including things like a young woman dying of cancer, children being bullied, soldiers breaking into their houses and into bunkers, parents being reunited with resurrected children, running towards one another on a beach while the music swells to a pitch. Full confession, even watching some of these videos triggered me. I'm not going to lie about it. Triggered me. The music, the images, that stuff that was embedded in my brain from the time I was a kid. The emotions are very real. They know what they're doing. There is no question, none, that the organization as a whole has shifted gears away from a scholarly approach to the Bible to an emotional one that is constantly pulling on our heartstrings, or trying to. But Jehovah's Witnesses and the rest of us are told that this is all truth. It's truth and something that we can depend on. But what better way to do that than to tell people they can live on earth forever in perfect health with everyone they've loved and ever loved, eating fruit and petting gorillas? That is the message that they've been pitching since 1935, when Judge Joe was directed by heaven to tell the world a paradise earth was coming and millions would not only live there, but that they would never die. And we are here examining truth, courtesy of the governing body. And well, those people, they're dead. They're dead. Was that true? Judge Joe, anointed, leader, chosen by Jesus? Or would we consider all of this, from their videos and the emotional music and the teachings of the past of living in a perfect earth with great looking skin, a great body, kiwi till your head exploded, and pet fish, I don't know. Would we consider this post-truth, as they ironically mention in this article in the opening paragraph, and it's still on the website today? It's unbelievable when you sit back and give it any thought. The gaslighting is epic. And unfortunately, a Jehovah's Witness will dismiss this. They'll dismiss all of it because they weren't sitting in that audience in 1935 in Washington, D.C. when Judge Joe rolled all of this out. And they so easily dismiss, and that's what time does to people, that thousands of other people were. Might have even been some of their grandparents or great-grandparents. And those people hung on to everything Judge Joe says, just like they do their recent videos, because they are Jesus' chosen guy or guys. And this is all called truth. And for anyone listening, this was indeed post-truth, due to heaven discontinuing applications to live there in 1935. Judge Joe had to do something, and he saw it was easy to appeal to emotions with an image of paradise and panda bears. Look, it works. They're still using the same stuff and calling it truth. Now it's in video. It comes with a soundtrack. There's people crying. We get to see people dying of disease. We get to see children rushing out of graves. We get to see witnesses surrounded, and it's called truth. You couple all of this same messaging that they've been pitching for over a century with powerful video images and music, and boom, we are in a new era of their vision and version of what they call truth. From the Watchtower of 2004, October 15th, page 8, paragraphs 1 and 2, titled Paradise for You, is the question. Under the subheading Paradise, we are told, quote, "Do you remember how you felt when you first heard about God's promise of an earthly paradise? You may recall learning that the eyes of the blind will be opened, the ears of the deaf unstopped, and the wilderness will burst out in fruitful beauty. Or what of the prophecy of the wolf with the lamb and the kid with the leopard? Were you not thrilled to read of dead loved ones coming back? your hope is not baseless. You have reason to believe the Bible's promises about that paradise. End quote. Bold claim. Bold claim. A claim that was not made by Jehovah's Witnesses until 1935. But remember, today's article that we're dissecting a bit on Jesus' website started with a question. The question was, quote, does it seem to you that the line between true and false has become blurred? People now seem to be persuaded more by emotion and personal belief than by truth and facts. End quote. You've built an entire religion around the claim of a paradise earth. And well, folks, anyone that has a Bible can open it, read it, and see that the word paradise, it only shows up in the entire book 3 times. 3 times in the entire book. And listen, are you sitting down? Because all 3 times paradise is mentioned in the Bible, it's about heaven. I have a past episode if you're interested. Is the governing body here appealing to fact in line with their own definition of truth? Or are they here appealing to emotion? Can I bank my life on this? Because we are here today discussing truth. And well, the leadership of Jehovah's Witnesses has also said this. From studies in the scriptures, the time is at hand, pages 98 to 99. Quote, true. It is expecting great things to claim, as we do, that within the coming 26 years, all present governments will be overthrown and dissolved. But we are living in a special and peculiar time, the day of Jehovah. In view of this strong Bible evidence concerning the times of the Gentiles, we consider it an established fact. Back up, quote, we consider it an established truth that the final end of the kingdoms of this world and the full establishment of the kingdom of God will be accomplished at the end of A.D. 1914, end quote. And there it is. There it is in print. Jehovah's Witness leadership falsely predicted 1914 to be the end of the system of things, the conclusion of Armageddon, and the start of what was not yet discovered, the earthly paradise. And they even called it in that writing, established truth. Oops. Does anyone here listening know where I can claim my beachfront property and my pet giraffe? Anybody know? I'll give up meat immediately, I promise. They called it established truth. And for an organization that is scolding people who tap into emotion over fact, does it make you as uncomfortable as it does me that they're targeting the minds of developing children with what they call truth? I couldn't believe my eyes. I still can't believe it, and full confession, I have not watched all of these, but this made me absolutely sick, and I can't recall seeing this before. But if you visit the website today, please do a search for Become Jehovah's Friend, Lesson 27, titled See Yourself in Paradise. It's a cartoon filled with emotions, post-truth, emotions, and zero facts, featuring Caleb and Sophia and their parents imagining paradise. It starts with Dad. He's singing his brains out. You see, Dad tells us he's been learning to sing operatic songs for over 8,000 years in the cartoon. Yeah, he says it. He says Jehovah gave him 8,000 years to practice. We find Sophia dreaming of a butterfly garden and greeting a resurrected Israelite girl. We find Caleb. He can't wait to have pet monkeys. And it finishes with Dad saying, "It's good to imagine ourselves in paradise. It helps us to rejoice in the hope Jehovah has given us." As the cartoon ends, a monkey steals Dad's hat, and Caleb says, "Look, Mom," and then he does his best vine-swinging Tarzan routine in paradise. There's lots of smile and joy, dare I say, emotions, and not one fact to back any of this fantasy sequence up. But it sure goes a long way towards keeping kids in 2024 from going to college or being their best selves or following their dreams. You see, it's designed to keep them in what they call the truth. And as you see, just watching this insane video, the truth, their version of it, is very good at trapping children. Some of us can relate to that. Some of us can really relate to that. But now back to the article on the website. The next subheading in this brief nugget of truth is titled, "Does Truth Even Exist?" I'm guessing you're on the edge of your seat waiting for their answer. Their answer is, quote, "Yes." The Bible uses the word truth to refer to what is factual as well as to what is morally right. It teaches that Jehovah God is the source of absolute truth, calling him the God of truth at Psalms 31:5. The Bible contains the truth from God, and it compares that truth to light as it can guide us through all the confusion in the world today, end quote. And well, folks, here we go. We are about to enter controversial territory in this examination of truth and their definition. And for those that hold the Bible itself, the book that they've claimed is the cornerstone or foundation of the religion, as truth, and as a book that is a touchstone, as they claim in this paragraph on the website, for every decision we make in life. They call the Bible truth, that Jehovah is the God of truth, and it's all incredibly factual. Okay. I'll try to keep this above board. If we are using the book they claim was written for them, incidentally, is that the truth? Never mind. It's important to take a look at what truths the Bible itself contains. I don't have time for many. I think you know where this might be headed. And for those that love the Bible and view it as factual and truth, please note, this is simply my opinion. Although you will soon see I back it up with fact and not emotion. Okay. How about a few examples? I'll try to keep it brief. But for emphasis, these are all truths from the God found in the Bible and as they claim in this week's article. How about this? At 2 Peter 2, 7-9 of the New World Translation, it tells us that Lot is a righteous man, that his righteous soul is distressed and tormented by the bad things he sees around him. But in Genesis 19, 30-38, we learn that righteous man, trigger warning, he allows his daughters to get him hammered, and they take turns having sex with him. I mean, what? And for those upset by this, good old Lot, the righteous guy, allows the two girls to do this over 2 nights, the Bible tells us. 2 nights. The first night with the oldest daughter apparently didn't jolt him to his senses at all. The righteous man went for it with the younger daughter on night 2. What do we call that today? What do we call this hideous event? But remember, the claim here is that the Bible contains nothing but truth. It's a touchstone. It helps us make the decisions we should make in everyday life. The governing body in the paragraph in the article called it a light that can guide us through the confusion of today's world. What? And hey, listen, just using Lot as one of thousands of questionable truths found in the Bible, don't forget he had already been Father of the Year. Earlier, before he had sex with his two daughters in a drunken stupor, when angels, looking a lot, of course, like Kenny Rogers, we've seen the pictures, visited Sodom, the men of the city wanted to have sex with them. Well, Lot, in a crisis moment, when the chips are down, Lot couldn't have had that. He can't have that. So he walks out front and offers the raging group of men the same two daughters for gang sex. What? You see, materialized angels, according to the Bible, are much more important than your own baby girls, your daughters, that these same disgusting men had likely seen grow up from the time they were children, little girls. Lot, Father of the Year status, rolls out, hey, take my daughters instead. So when you're making claims about the Bible itself, and it's an episode unto itself, probably 10 episodes, the Bible apparently has lots of truths in it that Jehovah wanted us to know. And to tie a bow just on this story, using this example, Lot is righteous, and we should be just like him. Jehovah's Witnesses have dramas about him. They feature him in their little books to kids. They feature him in Watchtower studies. Meanwhile, after offering his daughters up for gang assault and then having sex with them himself after getting drunk, all disfellowshipping offenses for a modern Jehovah's Witness. Meanwhile, you might remember Lot's wife turned around to watch the city burn. And well, she was so awful, such an awful person that Jehovah said, I can't believe you turned around to watch the fireworks, and he turned her into a salt lick. For those keeping track at home in reference to the Bible and its truths, Lot offers his daughters for assault. He sleeps with them himself. He gets drunk. He is righteous. Lot's wife, we didn't catch her name, doesn't matter. She left her curling iron on at home, turns back to look, and boom, evil woman must die. That is but one of the examples found in the Bible and called truth by the governing body. So when examining this week's article on truth and holding up the Bible as the touchstone, well, listen, even for someone who respects the book and is a Christian, it has a few problems. I mentioned one, just one. And to quote this week's feature article from the governing body, subheading 2, quote, the Bible uses the word truth to refer to what is factual as well as to what is morally right, end quote. Yes. Thank you, governing body. That guy Lot. What a moral pillar he is. Kids, don't ever be like Lot. Adults, don't ever be like Lot. I have nothing but respect for those that hold the Bible up as an important book. I think it is an important book. But when it comes to Jehovah's Witnesses and the governing body's claim that it's a book of truth written by an almighty God who wanted us to know what Lot was like, I'm going to guess you've literally chosen to just ignore most of the book outside of maybe the Gospels, 4 books. Because when you look at the rest of the Bible and you call it truth and factual, well, the rest of us, well, we have a lot of questions. Just look at Lot. But back to the article on truth. The next subheading is entitled, How Can You Find Truth? The article says this, quote, God does not want us to accept the truth from the Bible blindly. Thank God. Instead, he invites us to examine it by using our power of reason rather than by relying on our emotions. He wants us to come to know and love him using our whole mind, and he encourages us to confirm the truth of what we learn from the Bible. End quote. You'll note that this article associates truth with our minds and encourages us to use our power of reason. I'm all about critical thinking personally. I think most people are. I actually agree with the governing body here. Reasoning ability is critical to finding whether something is truthful or not. After all, remember, the Bible itself tells us we're made in God's image, and that includes the ability to reason. I think even a Jehovah's Witness or a Bible reader, a Christian, would agree God's pretty smart, right? The character of the Almighty God in the Bible, whether you believe it's Yahweh, Jehovah, or Jesus by religion, he's pretty smart, and we're made to be smart like him. So when considering truth, is it reasonable to conclude that by reading the Bible, we can find concrete proof that Jehovah God chose a guy named Charles Taze Russell to start a real Christian religion in the late 1870s in America? Is that reasonable, using your power of reason? Can I look in the Bible and find that? If you find that in the Bible, would you be so kind as to share the location with the rest of us who are eagerly searching for truth? I'd love for someone to show me. Is it reasonable? They encourage us to use our power of reason, so I'm here just posing the question. And as for the beginning of Jehovah's Witnesses and Chuck Russell himself, God's organization shows us that he had a lot to say about truth from the very beginning. In Zion's Watchtower of July 1879, Herald of Christ's Presence, remember, this is a big event for Jehovah's Witnesses. This was the kickoff to Jehovah's organization. This was the organization that Jesus chose in 1919. He went, oh, look at those guys. Look at Charles Taze Russell. He's my guy. This is what he said in the July 1879 Watchtower. Quote, a truth presented by Satan himself is just as true as a truth stated by God. End quote. Wow. Wow. What a revelation from Jesus' handpicked guy, Charles Taze Russell, the guy who got this all kicked off. According to him, it looks like we can even trust Satan as long as what he says is true. And I got to tell you, here, in just a couple paragraphs of the article on the website, it got my mind spinning because it's all very odd. They tell us that the Bible is a touchstone, that we should use our power of reason, we should study it. It's filled with nothing but facts and truth, minus the emotion. And well, I then got to thinking after what Chuck Taze Russell said, that Jesus had the following recorded in the same book regarding Satan and this subject of truth. At John 8:44 of the New World Translation, we are told, quote, you are from your father, the devil, and you wish to do the desires of your father. That one was a murderer when he began, and he did not stand fast in the truth, because truth is not in him. When he speaks the lie, he speaks according to his own disposition, because he is a liar and the father of the lie. End quote. Yeah, I know. No big deal. I'm sure Chuck Russell was telling the truth because, well, he's in heaven after all. And, well, if Satan is telling the truth, including in the Garden of Eden, when he told those two naked people that if they ate of the tree, their eyes were sure to be open, knowing good and bad. And, well, folks, that was the truth. He was telling the truth. Their eyes were open. I guess we can trust Satan too then, right? Because Chuck Russell said so, and Chuck always tells the truth. What a web of insanity. And it's all in print for a Jehovah's Witness that is seeking truth. He says we can even believe Satan if he tells the truth. You could trust him as long as what he says is the truth. And I'm God's chosen guy. And well, Jesus said that truth doesn't even exist in Satan. And then the Bible contradicts it all because then he tells God, Adam and Eve a truth. I need an Advil. Oh my. But you may be thinking, come on, Stacy, come on. Jehovah's guys are always honest and speak truth. They just get what we call new light. Okay. It always comes around to new light when examining the truth. So how about one more from Chuck Russell on this subject of new light? In the Watchtower article of February 15th, 1955, page 106, we learn about the book that was published entitled The Bible versus Evolution. The article in the 55 Watchtower props up one of his publications and says this, quote, "Something new was started that stimulated the dissemination of Bible truth through tract distribution. It was destined to take the clergy by storm. Zion's Watchtower for April 15, 1899, proposed what was called volunteer service. Volunteers were called from all the Christians who attended the Society's meetings to undertake, pay close attention, a mass free distribution of 300,000 copies of the new booklet, The Bible versus Evolution, to people as they left the Protestant churches on Sundays." End quote. Listen, Jehovah was moving in 1899. This book sounds like a great book. In 1955, they called it out and said, oh my goodness, there was a massive preaching campaign, 300,000. We attacked people as they came out of church on Sunday with this book. So it's only reasonable to ask then, what's in this book? Maybe you'd like to know what truths Chuck Russell was sharing in his book, The Bible versus Evolution. I thought you'd never ask. I here want to issue a trigger warning, okay? A trigger warning. From the book, The Bible versus Evolution, page 30, during this time period and propped up again 60, 70 years later in a 55 Watchtower, the truths dispensed were this, quote, "God has specially blessed and favored certain branches of the Aryan race in Europe and America." If you're thinking that sounds an awful lot like Adolf Hitler, you'd be correct. Back to the book, quote, "But the fact that the white race has been more abundantly blessed with the light of the gospel than others is not to be understood to signify that when members of other races heard and appreciated the gospel, they were repulsed or rejected by the Lord." Wow. Back to the quote, "While the elect church will probably be composed chiefly of the highly favored white race, nevertheless, it will probably have in it representatives out of every kindred, people, and tongue." End quote. My. Truth, as dispensed by the organization known as Jehovah's Witnesses. Thanks for throwing the vast majority of mankind that isn't Caucasian a bone in this paragraph, Chuck Taze Russell. But I did notice that you started something even more important when taking a long look at how you claim to be the truth. You're the guy, and I didn't realize it till reading this, that started with those pesky words that the governing body likes to use. You may have caught it. He used the word probably. There's a word to hang your life on. factual, not emotional. Are you saying if I'm not white, I have a pretty good chance or no? One of the featured articles on Jesus' website at this very hour is this one about why truth is so important. We're dissecting it paragraph by paragraph. And well, here is what the same organization was calling truth when Jehovah chose Chuck Russell. Racism. Isn't truth refreshing? Truth is also racist. It's in print, in their literature, God's only true organization. Shocking. Shocking. And now back to this week's article. The next two subheadings are everything you imagine they would be. A 2-paragraph summation of what started all this lying in the world. You probably know who that is. Jehovah's son, Satan. It then goes on to do what the truth does best, which is refer to timelines you can bank your life on. The next subheading is called, Why is Lying So Common Today? Quote, in our time, when the Bible calls the last days, Satan's misleading influence on the world has grown. People commonly tell lies to mislead others and take advantage of them. Falsehood also permeates most religions today. As the Bible foretold for our time, people surround themselves with teachers to have their ears tickled, choosing to turn away from listening to the truth. End quote. Isn't that something? Profound paragraph. Right there on the website. They say there, quote, people commonly tell lies to mislead others and take advantage of them, end quote. And I got to tell you, when I read that, profound words from the Watchtower and its authors, especially since they've never lied about anything, right? They've never lied. Judge Joe, I know you're listening in from heaven. Thanks for being here. Care to comment? For example, how are those millions never dying thing coming along? How's that coming along? Or what about this? From the Awake of 1966, October 8th, pages 19 and 20, quote, does God's rest day parallel the time man has been on earth since his creation? Apparently so. God, who knew Chuck did that? The probablys, the apparentlys, the evidentlys. It's been going on a while. Back to the quote. In what year then would the first 6,000 years of man's existence and also the first 6,000 years of God's rest day come to an end? The year 1975. It means that within a relatively few years, we will witness the fulfillment of the remaining prophecies that have to do with the time of the end. End quote. You notice they really put an exclamation point on this fact, not emotion, when they said it means that within a relatively few years. Sounds like a fact, right? Got it. 1975. How do I say this? It's 2024. Did I miss the big show? Did I miss it? Is now a good time to check in on the generation of 1914 that would live to see the Armageddon fireworks show? No? We can't check in on them? Why? Oh, they're dead. They're dead. Got it. Not a lie at all, though, right? And if you're thinking, oh, that word lie makes me uncomfortable, let me rephrase that. Whether it's 1975, whether it's millions now living will never die, whether it's the system being gone during the last century, let me rephrase it. Did any of it come true? Did it come true? And if it didn't, what is that? But when you're speaking truth, you also must speak with a sense of urgency. How about this from the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses? From the Watchtower of April 15th, 1967, pages 243 and 244, quote, "The danger of sudden death is staring you in the face." That is exactly the case with the warning that we speak of here. And there are reasons why it can truly be said to be the most urgent warning ever given. It is to come within the generation that has already seen 2 world wars, and it is only a few short years ahead of us. End quote. April 15th, 1967, Watchtower. Aren't you grateful for the organization that wrote and printed this truth? The same organization that is now, in the article we're dissecting this week, trying to tell us what truth means. I got to tell you, in this particular one, I'm thankful this wasn't truth. I was born in August of 1967 when the danger of sudden death was staring Watchtower readers in the face. Wow. Please keep in mind their definition of truth mentioned at the outset of this episode. And by the way, it's 2024. That death staring us in the face, that sudden death, very sudden. And as this week's article shows, most people tell lies to mislead and take advantage of people. Their words, not mine, but not the governing body, right? They would never do that. If you look at it, strip the emotion out of it, and you're just looking for the facts, clearly a multi-billion-dollar organization currently building a visitor center with fake Disney-like synagogues and producing really poorly acted movies has never taken advantage of anyone, right? Or their bank accounts. Truth. The next 2 subheadings of this website treasure feature the subheading, "Why is truth important?" and "Why does God want me to know the truth?" Quote, "Truth forms the basis for trust between people. Without trust, friendships and society break down. The Bible says that God wants our worship to be based on truth. It states, those worshiping God must worship with spirit and truth. God wants you to gain salvation, and you need to learn the truth about Him to do that. If you learn God's standards of right and wrong and live by them, you will gain His close friendship. To help people learn the truth, God sent Jesus to the earth." End quote. And you guessed it, the only guys Jesus works with, according to this article, is the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. So if you really want to learn truth or the truth, you got to obey them. When Jesus came to earth and said He was the way, the truth, and the life, He simply forgot to mention His future real estate publishing company in upstate New York. He just kind of forgot. But the article concludes with the final subheading, "Will God ever eliminate lying?" It tells us this, quote, "Yes, God hates it when people take advantage of others through deception. He has promised to rid the earth of those who are determined to keep on lying. When God does that, He will also fulfill His promise, truthful lips will endure forever." End quote. And here's the confirmation from the world's most honest 9 men. God hates it when people take advantage of others through deception. Billy Joel can confirm, by the way. I guess when you've nailed everything you've ever predicted, you have nothing to worry about, right? Wait. But for a Jehovah's Witness that may be visiting, listen, serious time. How do you feel about all of this? If the truth and truth is so easy to define and it's so easy to see how wrong the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses claim they're just making adjustments or it's new light, do you ever just sit back for a moment and go, well, wait a minute then? Was it ever truth? Was it ever true, even with those adjustments? Truth doesn't change. It's always truth. It's factual. It's not based on emotion. But then there's this. From Zion's Watchtower of 1881, February, pages 3 and page 188, Chuck Russell again, quote, "If we were following a man, undoubtedly it would be different with us. Undoubtedly, one human idea would contradict another, and that which was light 1 or 2 or 6 years ago would be regarded as darkness now. But with God there is no variableness, neither shadow of turning, and so it is with truth. Any knowledge or light coming from God must be like its author. A view of truth never can contradict a former truth. New light never extinguishes older light, but adds to it." End quote. For a witness listening, and the rest of us, that came from Jehovah's favorite guy in the 1800s. Jehovah never changes. The truth never changes. His words, not mine. Apparently, Jehovah's favorite man in all the universe knew this and made sure we knew how Jehovah felt about truth from the very beginning of his organization. For a witness to listen to this episode and dismiss the evidence with a throwaway phrase like new light, or to actually do personal research and find all the erroneous, deadly lies these men have taught millions for well over a century, is in itself a lie. It is not the truth. The evidence of their dishonesty is overwhelming. But when you know they're doing this, and make no mistake, they know they're not telling the truth, see recent annual meetings, you can always distract your followers by going back to the very beginning of the Watchtower to say that the truth is a lot like a flower being choked out by weeds. Did you know this? From the Watchtower of June 2017, page 12, paragraph 14, set your heart on spiritual treasures, we are told this, quote, "We must develop good personal study habits and do careful research in God's Word and in our publications. This will help us to discover truths that may be new in the sense that we did not know them before." End quote for a moment. This is good encouragement for a witness listening. You should dig in. You should study. You're going to discover truths. And I'm here to tell you it's going to be uncomfortable when you compare it to the organization. Back to the quote. The very first issue of this magazine, published in July 1879, stated, "Truth, like a modest little flower in the wilderness of life, is surrounded and almost choked by the luxuriant growth of the weeds of error. If you would find it, you must be ever on the lookout. If you would possess it, you must stoop to get it. Be not content with one flower of truth, gather ever, seek for more." End quote. Yes, you must be eager to enrich our own treasure store of divine truths. Real end quote. Do you agree with the wise counsel here, if you're a witness of Chuck Russell, that continues with today's governing body? They both encourage, that was quoting from 1879 in a 2017 Watchtower, they both encourage careful research so you can discover all the beautiful flowers of truth among all of what they call the weeds of error. Their own admission that error is indeed not truth. Their words, not mine. So as a Jehovah's Witness looks at their flower garden in search of truth, do they find any error? If you're here and looking for a project, start with this. Studies in the Scriptures, the time is at hand. Chuck Russell got a lot of play this week. 1889, 1911 reprint edition, page 99 says this, quote, "We consider it an established truth that the final end of the kingdoms of this world and the full establishment of the kingdom of God will be accomplished near the end of AD 1914, end quote. I've read it twice now. Was it true? If it's not true, and it wasn't true, what was it? Was it a weed? Was it an error? For this organization to attempt to teach the rest of us why truth is so important this week on their website, for them to even attempt to do that is intellectually insulting. Their version of truth is constantly changing, and they know it. They're on video talking about it now. They have a revised section of their beliefs on Jesus' website. Again, they call it new light. But let's be honest with ourselves. We're seeking truth here. It was nothing more than an error, or more accurately, a lie. Why do I say that? Because their motives, the motives of the governing body, are so easy to see. From the Watchtower of September 2020, page 26, paragraphs 3 through 4, "Entrusted with Precious Truths" is the title. We get this, quote, "Jehovah has favored us with an accurate knowledge of the precious truths found in his word, the Bible. When we accept those truths and live by them, we are freed from enslavement to false teachings and immoral practices. Another reason why the truths found in God's word are precious is that Jehovah reveals them only to humble ones who are rightly disposed." Pay close attention for the motive. Quote, "Such individuals accept the channel he uses to dispense those truths today. We cannot learn these truths on our own." End quote. Truth. Fact. You can only learn it from 9 men in upstate New York, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, the predecessors to guys who told us the world would end in 1914, or that millions now living would never die, or that the generation that saw two world wars would live to see Armageddon. It's all in print. It's either truth or it's not. So their question this week, the question of this article was, is truth important anymore? Join me now on a journey back to 1979, Billy Joel and his song, Honesty. The lyrics continue with this, quote, "I can always find someone to say they sympathize. If I wear my heart out on my sleeve, but I don't want some pretty face to tell me pretty lies. All I want is someone to believe. Honesty is such a lonely word. Everyone is so untrue. Honesty is hardly ever heard, and mostly what I need from you." End quote. Thank you, Billy. You see, when you call your religion the truth, and when you claim to represent Jesus Christ and you hold my salvation in your hands, honesty is mostly what I need from you. And how ironic for an organization to call itself the truth when its entire history is filled with error and lies. The governing body via this week's article asked the question, is truth important anymore? My answer to them is this. Look in the mirror. You're the last 9 guys that should ever ask that question. I want to thank you for being here this week. Wherever you may be, check out the 1979 playlist and be well.